right ahead now and meet our third speaker. So Denisse Ariana Perez is a Dominican copywriter and photographer currently based in Copenhagen. We fell in love with the intimacy and tenderness that emanates from her photography, particularly her portraiture. She's joining us tonight to talk about two important themes in her work, masculinity and water, the latter being the subject of her debut photo book, which has been nearly 2 years in the making. Very excitingly, Denisse is also going to be showing us some exclusive, previously unpublished images from the new book. So Denisse, please turn on your audio and video so we can say hi.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you? It has been so inspiring so far.
Yeah, no, well, I'm sure that's going to continue. But yeah, sorry if I butchered your name earlier. I've been practicing all day. I think I didn't get it quite right.
I'm very proud of you. You absolutely nailed it. Yes.
All right. Well, listen, I'm going to hand over to you to share your screen. And yeah, anyone else, if you've got questions for Denisse, put them in the chat. And again, we'll get around to them afterwards. But yeah, over to you. Great.
Great. So as Matt said, my name is Denisse Ariana Perez. And on the lower corner, you'll see my Instagram handle, Denisse APS. I'm a copywriter and photographer, and I'm currently based in Copenhagen. So today I'm going to be talking about my photographic work. And to summarize it, I would say that I am a people photographer. I photograph people. That means human bodies and human faces. And my work centers around the interaction of people as they interact with nature and with each other, and as they interact with their immediate ecosystems, basically, and their environments. And I am extremely passionate about changing the narratives in which we portray marginalized communities, and specifically people of color or LGBTQI people. Or recently I've been doing an ongoing series on people living with albinism in different parts of Africa, for example. So for me, it's very important that when I portray, I mostly photograph real people, not models. And when I'm photographing these marginalized communities, for me, it's very important to not look at them and portray them as victims. My work is all about elevating and highlighting beauty and just portraying people in the most dignified way that I can possibly do. And yeah, I think that's why I don't see my work as either traditionally documentary or traditionally just artistic. I think it's somewhere in the middle. We can call it like fantastical realism, if anything. And yeah, so that's some summary of what my work is about. But today I'm going to be discussing two things. The first one will be men, and the second one will be water. So I would say that the way I portray man, it comes from a very personal place, actually. I grew up in the Caribbean, Dominican Republic, and I grew up in a society that is extremely patriarchal. We're talking about like staunch masculinity and just, forms of like dominant masculinity, but also it allowed me to just really observe in detail nuances of men, and it allowed me to just be a fly on the wall, I would say. And for me, that's what it was interesting. I think it was seeing the nuances and how multifaceted and like multidimensional the men around me were, and they're little facets of rawness. So now when I look in retrospect, actually I can see that my work today, it's kind of a love letter to that form of, not that form of masculinity, but the multifacetedness of it. And it's a love letter to, I think, also to those original men in my life, like my brothers and my father, but also a love letter to brown and black skin. I think that I also grew up in a place where there was so much one could say, just hidden racism. And that was not something that was celebrated, you know, Black skin and all of its glory. And I think that I can see my work now as a love letter from my inner child, just beautifying and celebrating something that I found very beautiful. And I still do, of course. Here you can see some of the photos I've taken throughout Africa, for example. These were taken in Uganda. And as I mentioned, here you can see some of my work featuring men living, well, young men living with albinism. And these were also taken in Uganda. I love this idea of taking a very serious issue like albinism and yeah, portraying it in a different way and reimagining it and yeah, bringing an air of something ethereal around it. Actually, somebody asked me why I mostly photograph men, and they were sort of implying that I was less of a feminist because I did. And I couldn't disagree more because actually it's in the way that I portray men where I can really identify my sensitivity. Anytime that I sort of forget or need to remember where my sensitivity lies is actually in these portrayals of men. And if I may dare to say, I think that it's a bit of a bigger challenge to create a space for men to really forget about their facades and, you know, the socially imposed facades that they must have, and just provide a space where they can just be and feel, yeah, disarmed. And for me, that's a challenge that I enjoy and I like to facilitate. I'm also very interested in movement. I used to dance when I was younger, and I think that there's something very beautiful about just portraying the body and showing a sort of freedom from the physical body as well. These pictures were taken in Morocco. And these pictures I took from the Danish National Ballet, actually. Again, I like to play with movement and also with just fluidity and just breaking down, yeah, how men are male identifying beings are portrayed and how they move. And now for the second theme of today, we're going to be talking about water. So as you noticed in the first session, nature is a omnipresent theme all over my work, but water just became this recurrent theme. It just became this subject that I kept coming back to, and I just kept returning to this water landscapes and these lagoons and these rivers and these lakes, and I started to reflect about it, and I realized how ironic it was. And I was indeed like born in an island, but I never had a relationship with water, like a true, meaningful relationship, until I was an adult and, you know, was far removed from these landscapes. And yeah, as an adult, I think I just developed this connection to water, and it is this element that would allow me to really feel fluid and be in touch and feel aware and just flow and feel connected. And those are exactly the feelings that I would like to bring out in my subjects. So yeah, it just became this bigger theme. And I think about 2 years ago, it started in Senegal when I took some pictures of a couple of young boys there, and it has traveled with me into a sort of like aquatic pilgrimage of sorts. And as Matt mentioned, this will be the theme of my first photo book, which will hopefully be coming out by the end of this year, and that I'm collaborating with Guest Editions, a design studio, and they're based in London. Yeah, and also for For this project, I wanted to include women as well. And water in itself is so universal. It's such a big subject and is so transcendental. And I wanted to make it just as universal in the selection of the subject. So that means I wanted to include women. I wanted to include other natural elements. I wanted to include more gender fluidity in it as well, to just match with the characters, the fluidity and the universality of water. So these were taken in Denmark, actually. A funny story is that I wanted to finish the book this year in Asia, and I was planning to go to Indonesia, but due to the pandemic, I couldn't. And it was this blessing in disguise, actually, that I got to finish it here up north and really explore these very contrasting landscapes from those tropical ones that I had photographed initially in like sub-Saharan Africa. So yeah, that has been very beautiful to just really explore this, the contrast of all the water and all the different characters. These were also taken in Denmark, and the previous ones were taken in London. These photos were taken in Uganda. And then you're going to see different forms of waterfalls, which are, you know, come with more fortitude and more pressure. And then you're going to see very subtle forms of water and very calm and evoking the sense of silence. So there's so much that can be expressed. And that's something that I'm very drawn to. Some of these photos I've actually never, for example, these two, I've never published them before. So you're the first ones to see them as a little, preview of what the book will contain. And these pictures were taken in Senegal just before the pandemic, in the Lac Rose, the pink lake. Also in my work, I do all of the styling and the selection of the materials. And I love going to a place and actually exploring the local textures as well, and finding local props as well. Again, these are more explorations with people living with albinism, and these were taken in Tanzania. I also like to collaborate when it comes to aesthetics, to also bring an element of fashion into it. And in these ones, also in brands that I believe in. And these shirts, for example, were in collaboration with a brand called Asket. And they're a sustainable Swedish brand. And the previous ones that you saw were from a brand called Art Comes First. And I really believe in their values. Here, you can see them. So I love to bring this element of, it's documentaries creating awareness, but also there's an element, aesthetic element of fashion, and then there's an artistic element. So it's just blending all these different worlds into one. And I do think that awareness creation can become so much more interesting because people are so saturated with information, and they, especially today. And I think that we need to reimagine the ways in which we tell very serious stories. And I think that we can utilize art and beauty to make them not only eye-catching, but just to really elevate them. And we have to, seduce the eye. And I think that's and just bring some poetry into the prose, but also into the documentary. And I think that just makes it more interesting. And that is all I have.
Thanks so much, Denisse. That was amazing. I think it's fair to say you've got a few fans of that photo book already who are going to be going out and immediately buying that when it comes out. You can stop sharing your screen now. We've got some great questions from the audience again. So first off is from Sergio. He says, how have the people you photographed reacted to the final result? It's obviously like a an interesting thing for any photographer is how your subject, kind of that relationship with your subject. So yeah, how have they responded when you've kind of presented them with the final pieces?
Yeah, I think I don't think I've had ever a negative response to say. I do think that for me, and a lot of times for me to convince someone to pose for me, I show them my work previously, and it's a conversation of them seeing what my work is about. And I very much, when I make it very clear that my work focuses on just on highlighting and elevating. And for example, when I'm traveling around Africa, like a lot of people are very and rightfully so, they're very skeptical about being photographed by a foreigner, and they are so done, and I am so done with this very negative portrayal of the continent and of poverty. And when they see that my intention is actually to change that and to sort of put them in a pedestal, or then they really feel empowered and they want to be part of it, and they believe and what the work does and what my intention is. So I think that it's a conversation that I have prior, and that in itself makes them proud to be in the picture. These are the most conceptual photos, I think. Then there are others that are a little bit more candid, and I will add my subjects and exchange numbers, and I will share them with them after, and they're just very honored most of the time.
Interesting. There was another question that came through about that kind of relationship with your models. I don't know who it's from, but they say, are your photographs kind of staged, or do you tell your models what to do and capture it from there, or is it kind of much more, I guess, fluid?
I think it's a mixture. I think that for me, the process is my favorite part. It's not necessarily the finished photos are nice, but for me, it's that process and making someone trust you. For me, building a space of intimacy and trust is very important. And once that it's done, and I need to be someone's like therapist and director. I need to these are real people most of the time. So I need to, sometimes they're not very comfortable in front of the camera. So I need to make them feel comfortable. I need them to breathe slowly. So I'm almost like a yoga instructor meets a director, meets a therapist. And then in that mixture, I think they're able to relax. And then, yes, if I want someone to close their eyes or look at the sky, then I know what I'm looking for. And of course, I'll guide them. If it's someone who's very fluid in their body, like a dancer, yes, I will. I love when they get to move freely, and then I'll tell them, stop there. Can we explore that? So it depends on the person as well, how comfortable they are, how fluid in their body they are. So it depends.
Okay, fantastic. One final question from Maria. I think she's picked up on the fact that you have been working on this book for 2 years, and asks, how did you stay motivated to work on this photo book for 2 years? Was it ever kind of challenging keeping up that motivation? Or I guess the end product now in your hands, it's kind of maybe easier to see how you kept motivated.
Well, I think for me, it doesn't feel like work. I mean, so it is, I have stamina for that in which I believe. So for me, it just feels right. And I'm just hunting, I guess, for that I want to express. And also because it has taken so many different facets. So I've told different stories within this same context of water. So it hasn't just been the same, like the story about the albinos, that's a completely different story. And it just fits within this theme of water. But there has been a diversity that has kept me engaged in the stories as well. And in every place it has been different, and experimenting with different elements to bring in and different characters. So I think it never got boring. And if anything, yeah, once I'm very passionate about something, then it just never tires, really.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I wonder if 2 years is actually fairly normal to work on a photo.
It's like a year and a half, but it will come out at the end of this year, so we'll make it 2.
We'll make it 2.
So yes. So it feels like a very overdue baby.
Right.
So I've been pregnant for 2 years, basically.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, listen, Denisse, thank you so much. We're going to have to leave it there, but yeah, thank you for an amazing talk and some great advice afterwards as well. I'm going to ask you to turn your audio and video off. Yeah, thank you. It's time now for